The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the version 19 walkthrough. Today we're going to have a look at the functionality introduced in version 19. At the end of the session, we're going to have some time for Q&A, so please hang around to the end. I'm obviously James Leckie, the co-founder and director at Schoolbox, and I'll be taking you through the functionality we've got today. So let's get into it. So first up. We're going to log in as a teacher and have a look at some of the new functionality that we've introduced for teachers into the product. So when we log in as a parent, one of the first things that we've done is we've added the ability for when you search for a parent to look for a student on the parent. So you're actually able now to see the students. Search just quickly for read, and have a look at the parents there. Get me actually logged in, it'll help. And if I have a look at this parent here, I can see here that when I search for this parent, we now have a list of students attached to this parent. So it just makes it easier when you're searching for a particular person, you can now see the other people that may be attached to that. Of course, if you click through to this particular student, you're able to then see the parent on that student's contact and go backwards and forwards between those profiles. So those profiles are now joined together specifically. Going to the class page now as that teacher. Let's log in as that teacher that logged me out of just a second ago, sorry about that. Going into that teacher, I'm able to have a look at the class list. Now, this is a feature that's been around for a long time in Schoolbox, but it's been rewritten in version 19. And one of the new features that we added was the ability to select which list of people you wanted to email when you were emailing. So now you can select both who you want to email, whether you want to email just the students of the parents, or the housemasters as well. So now you can get all of those people together into one big email and send it to everyone. So if you want to email the parents of the students and the students together, you can now do that. For those that have been around for a while, you remember these were previously separate buttons, so you could only email students and parents, so now you can do them all in one big email. There's the housemaster tick box here as well. We've also added the ability to turn this off in the admin system. So if you don't have housemasters, you're able to go in and disable that through the admin system now. So if you don't want that option there, just go and turn that off in the admin system, and that'll remove that option from that list. But you are able to obviously use these for any audience that you like. Going forward now, we'll have a look back at the class page. I'm going to go into our demo class page here. And for this part, I'm actually going to have a look at the new news system. And in the last release, we did a lot of work adding in the new super news system, and we've had all the new audiencing and all of that functionality. It's starting to bed down now and become part of the workflows. But there was a few things missing that we wanted to really add into the news, and we'd also change some behavior. So let's just talk about what we've done. So firstly, when I add a news component to a class page here, I'm able to now post this news article. And I'll just grab some sample text here. Post in my headline, post in some text. And I've got my article now. I'm just going to leave all of that pretty much as is and publish that news. Now, firstly, what's changed here is that previously, when we first released 18.2, we had this news here and it would only show the blurb of the article, which was about 300 characters of the text. So it wasn't showing the whole article. We've now reverted that behavior. So by default, it'll now show the entire article again. This is just like it was in 18.1. We found this was better use case for the way teachers were using it in the classroom. When you're using news in the classroom, you often want the whole news on the page, so it makes sense for the whole news to be posted. If, of course, you want to configure that and revert back to the old behavior, we've added a compact mode option. So you can tick that option, update, and you'll now get the lightweight version, so all the headlines with a bit of a blurb text. So you can choose what works best for your use case. But as I said, by default, it's now gone back to the way it was in 18.1. So you get the full news article, images, videos, whatever you've embedded in that news article is all going to be displayed by default on that home page. That's different to what happens on the dashboard, for example. On the dashboard, we are still keeping it in the blurb format, but just in the context of a home page, we thought this made more sense. All right, so moving on into that actual news article. We've got a few new things to talk about here. Firstly, we've redesigned this whole page. So we've now made it so that if you have a feature image, and I should just quickly show what that looks like if you've got a feature image. So if we've got a feature image, for example, this one here, the feature image will now become the banner of your news. So that feature image will be featured right at the very top of the news article. Obviously, you know, portraits are not the best aspect ratio. If you have a wide image, that's going to fit the best, but portraits work just as well there as well. But one of the most important things we've done here is we've actually fixed width the text. Now, as our screens have got wider and the ability to stash more and more of the content on our page, we've had this problem where the screen's grown wider and wider. We've got more real estate than ever before. But of course, you don't want to be reading text across the whole screen in one long continuous line. So we've gone with this design for the news page to make it easier to read. So you're just reading at the very center of the page. And it's not any longer than what it should be in terms of readability. Below that, we've got the ability to post comments now. So every article, you can now turn comments on. Now, you can only turn comments on if you are the owner of that article or if you're the moderator of news. So I obviously post this article, so I can turn comments on. When I turn comments on, I'm able to obviously post new comments. And post them in, and they'll just all go straight into the comment feed below the article. If at any point in time you want to turn those comments off, you can simply turn them off, and no one will be able to comment from that point forward. If you've got inappropriate comments or you want to clean them up, remove things, you can delete comments as well. And so a user can delete their own comments, but also the admin can come in and delete any other comments they choose to delete as well. So you've got full control over the commenting system there. Obviously, with the commenting, we wanted to really engage people with the articles. We wanted to focus on collaboration. We wanted people to actually engage with the content. Now, this commenting system is great because it's tied to our audiencing system. So you can target a news article to your entire school community, or you can target it just to your classroom. No matter where you target it, those people will be able to comment on that article. So you can have that collaborative experience as wide or as small as you want, depending on what you set your audience to. So any audience can start engaging and commenting. Obviously, only those that are in the audience can comment on a post. So if you're not in the audience, you don't get involved in that particular post. One of the other things that I should cover off while we're here, the comments here are fully part of the new notification system. So when you post a comment to a news article, it will notify automatically the owner of that article. So whoever posted that article will be notified whenever a comment is posted on their article. So if I'm a teacher and I post that article to my class page, any kids who come in and post on that, I will be automatically notified. If it's a wider audience, obviously I'm going to be notified of that wider audience as well. Once you've engaged with that article, you will also start becoming notified as well. So by engaged, I mean if you comment yourself on that article, so if you say, you know, I want to hear more about this, and then people post after you, you're going to be notified of all of their posts as well. So you can sort of comment just to get tied into the updates that come as more people comment on that as well. So you can sort of subscribe to it, I guess, in a way, by commenting on that article. And we see a lot of people doing that in our forums already, because it's sort of how our forums work as well. So when you post into a forum thread, you then get notified of any subsequent posts. And the same thing goes with comments on news. So we thought we'd just try a feature here of trying out a poll and having a look at what people thought about what we've done here and what we should do next, really. I think that's the most important thing. So we've got a vision for our news to become, you know, the centralized, unified communication feed for your entire school. So we really want to, I guess, enhance this area and continue to focus on continuing to build it out. And we just wanted to ask you a quick question about that feature. And what we really want to know is, what features do you think we should build next into news? So we're looking at things like adding statistics, where we can track, you know, who's viewed the article, when they viewed the article, what types of roles have viewed the article, how they got to the article, whether they got to it via an email. So there's a whole lot of interesting statistics that we've actually started to capture behind the scenes, and we're going to be looking at building out some reports on that data in the future. We're also looking at adding in file and image attachments. And if you've used the blog before, you know the blog has the ability to do an image gallery with all posts. We'd really love to have that functionality inside news as well. So you can do image galleries, or you could attach a video or attach a file, a PDF to your news. And then finally, you know, everyone is seeing social media these days and news with the ability to have likes and reactions to news. So which of these features do you think we should build next? Which is the feature that you think you'd like to see the most in the next version? So if you just quickly vote on that, that would be great. So I've got 70% of people voted. That's excellent. Thank you very much for voting. All right, I think we'll move along. 85%, I think that's pretty good. So thanks very much, everyone, for voting on that. How about we show the results? See if we can show those results there. Can we show the results, Matt? I'll just read them out for you. So,
yeah. There we go.
Thanks, Matt. So just to quickly look at these results, we've got 47% people want statistics, 43% want file attachments, and 9% want likes. So thanks very much for that feedback. It's always useful to know what people are interested in. Just in general, like, I think statistics and file images, both very valuable features. I think in terms of us, ultimately, we're going to be replacing the blog component with this. We're going to need the file and image attachments to obviously replace the blog component, but statistics very useful as well, just to know who's engaging with that content. So definitely two of our highest priority features as well. So thanks for that feedback. Let's move on to probably the most exciting feature of this release and start talking about the Rubric Markbook. So obviously, for those that have been along for a while, know that I'm a big supporter of rubrics and big proponent of using rubrics for assessment. But one of the key things that we've been missing is the ability to view that rubric data in an overall view, to be able to look at it from the holistic perspective and to summate that data into insights. So we've had different ways of approaching that over the years, but this is the first time we've really taken on showing the whole thing. So the Rubric Markbook's now available from your class page. So I'll visit this Rubric Markbook here. And you'll notice, firstly, we've redesigned the filters area across the top, but I'll come back to that in just a moment to talk about those filters. But let's have a look at how we've laid out this page first. So firstly, we've got the students' names across the top, and down in the columns, we've got all of the results they've got for all of the assessments and indicators and capabilities they've been marked against across all of those assessments. Just before we sort of move on, one of the things that we've hotly debated in the office here is how we'd lay this page out. So we thought we might just quickly poll you again, just to get your take on this layout and what you think. Now, we've approached this, I guess, from a perspective of this was the best way to lay out with the screen real estate that we had. So we wanted to, I guess, lay out this page so that you could see all the information clearly, you could see what indicators and capabilities were being used, and you could see the students. But we've had a lot of feedback that some schools would prefer the student names to be on the left. So I guess what I want to ask you is, which way would you lay out this page? Would you have the student names on the top, like we have, or would you put the student names down the left? Obviously, there's going to be some challenges with the student names down the left. There's not as much, I guess, vertical space to put those long capability and indicator descriptions in above the table, but we want to know what your perspective is. Would you prefer left students, or would you prefer the way we've got it with the assessments down the left and having a bit more space to display that text? All right, we've got 64% voted, and it looks like it's pretty much as contentious out there as it is in our office. I've got pretty much a 50-50 split at the moment, so pretty much as I thought. It could go either way. Yeah, it's one of those tough ones, you know. I know a lot of people do, you know, have had a Markbook like this for a long time in a particular format, and for them, that's just the way it's always been and always will. For others, they're more, its readability is more important than, I guess, the traditional way of doing it. So thanks very much for that feedback. We'll close that poll up now and have a look at the results. So there you go, pretty much neck and neck. I think student names across the top just won, but only barely. So it's something for us to think about. We're not completely tied to which way we've got it at the moment. We know it's going to split the group. It's certainly split the group inside the office as well. So yeah, thanks for that feedback. I don't think it really helps me to make a decision on that. But yeah, thanks very much for helping out on that. So let's go back and have a look at what we actually see on this report. So firstly, in the fields, you can see here, we've got the two levels here. We have the capability level and the indicator level. Okay, so these are the two parts of a standard rubric. So for us, we have capabilities and indicators. For other systems, they have criterias. So it does depend a bit on your terminology within the rubrics, but the same sort of thing. So here we have the mark that was given for that particular assessment. If I mouse over that, I'll actually get the descriptor that relates to the mark that the student was given. So I can see the actual specific descriptor that was given as well to that student. Here you can see 4 out of 4. This is actually, the mark 4 was given to the student and it was out of 4. If I click through to that, I can actually see the student's rubric as it was marked as well. So you can see here they got 4 out of 4 for that particular area. Next up, just down here, we've got a tick box here. Now this means that we've marked them, but we haven't actually marked them with a number. So there's been no value for that descriptor. And for those that are out there that are using descriptors without value, this is what will happen in this report. So you'll still see who's been marked and who hasn't been marked. Students who haven't been marked will just have a dash. Students that have been marked will get a tick. And if you mouse over that tick, you'll see the descriptor that was used. But in this particular case, the rubric didn't have any numbers associated with those descriptors. So we're unable to report on a mark there. So keeping on going through here, you'll see some other things going on. So here you'll notice that there's a percentage for the capability and then a total mark for the indicator. Now this happens because capabilities are actually marked with the mark scheme of the assessment. So in this case, this essay had a mark scheme of percentage. So the capabilities have been marked with a percentage, and now that could be a letter grade. So you could have letter grades in here for your capabilities as well. And this is very relevant for a lot of curriculum systems where they need to give a letter grade for a criteria or a capability. But it could be any system here. As long as you've turned mark per capability on your rubric and you've selected a mark scheme, that mark will appear here for that capability. And underneath you can see the actual detail of what they got for the descriptor. If we look at this actual rubric again and see how that student was marked, we can see here that they got 50% and how that actually translates to what we're seeing in the rubric. So it's just showing that data in a different form. It's the same information, but just restructuring in a different form. As we move down here, we can see an assessment that has yet to be marked. So this hasn't been marked yet, so no students have received any grades there. We go further down, we get to the final section down the very bottom where we can see the overall assessment. Now this is a form of summation, and what we've done here is we've summated each of the areas, capabilities and indicators based on the weighting of the assessment and the grade that they received for that particular area. So we did a weighted average of the data that's above here. So we take all the ones that match up with this particular indicator, do a weighting, and get the average score overall. So this will give you an overall grade for each of these particular areas that you have assessed across the entire period of time that you're reporting on. Okay, so let's move on now to some filters. So obviously that's a pretty big graph, pretty big report, and pretty hard to read if we're looking at anything particular that we want to see. Now, in this particular space, we've got all of the standard filters. So we can filter by term. So if we want to look across the whole year, we could bring the whole year in. If we want to look at a single year, we can do that, or a single semester. So we've got those filters. And all of these filters you've seen before on the Markbook. So these are all fairly common. You can see the new design here that we've got. So we're able to filter just to assessment task. And that new filter system brings up that assessment task here. And I click apply. And I'm able to see just the assessment task items in this list. If I want to remove that, I just click there, and now I apply, and it's gone. The new filters here are capability indicators and mark per capability. These two new filters allow us to filter to specific areas of interest. So if I, for example, wanted to see knowledge and understanding of the text as a capability, I can apply that filter, and I will only now see the assessments that measure knowledge and understanding of the text, the grades that they got for that, and the overall for that particular area. So I can filter it down just to the specific capability that I want to look at and find just the particular assessments that are affected and how the students have received grades for that particular area. You'll see that in this case, these areas are grayed out. Now what that means is that this was marked, but perhaps it wasn't marked at a capability level. So what I can then do is bring in the two sub-indicators below that capability and apply that and see the actual subparts below that. So now I'm seeing not just the capability, but also the indicators below that have resulted in that mark as well. So lots of flexibility there with how you report. So if I look at a different version, perhaps I want to have a look at grammar, and I want to filter out any that perhaps haven't been enabled, haven't marked per capability. And now we're seeing just the assessments that have marked the capability grammar and the results for those. So it's a pretty powerful way to get that information quickly reformatted. Remember that capabilities can be marked to any mark scheme, so these could be letter grades, they could be percentages, they can be total marks. It all depends on the marking system that you've selected for your assessments. So you're free to choose those marking systems for those capabilities, and they will all appear here in this report. So when you come to that end of year reporting and you need to make that summation, this is going to be the crucial information that you need to assess that final mark for that particular area of study. Okay, what have we got up next? So just a few things to wrap up. We've got some admin, a new admin feature that I should just briefly discuss. So as an admin, as we sort of move Schoolbox forward into more of a cloud environment, we've been progressively rewriting our file system to be cloud ready. What that means is that we can use cloud storage systems to store all of our data. I know there's been lots of discussions recently about storage with Schoolbox, and of course we want to make sure that you can leverage cloud storage systems in the future, and we can start to provide Schoolbox in the cloud with cloud storage behind it. So we've been working through all of the parts of the system to make sure that we're ready for that environment. The last thing that we had to do was profile photos. So as you're aware, profile photos for most schools are actually populated from the SIS. Now when you go and modify a user, you'll see the portrait photo that is being populated from the SIS in the user's modify screen. Now, if you don't have that photo being auto-populated from the SIS, you can now modify that photo directly here. So if I just turn off the connectivity to that system, I'm just going to load photos from SIS off. What this will do is mean that my photos are now being, I guess, manually uploaded. And I can now delete that photo and reattach a new photo for that person. So I can manage those photos on a per user basis if I choose. Now, you'll probably be aware, for those that have been managing their photos previously, there's still the bulk import function, and you can still import user photos on bulk as well. So that's still there, but it just gives you the single user modify. Now, all of this is tied into the fact that portrait photos are no longer stored as they were on disk. They're now part of the Schoolbox file system. So they become a hash object within our database. So that's how they're now stored behind the scenes. So we can now plug them into the cloud storage system if we need to. All right, so that about wraps me up, but there's a few last minute things just to talk about before we sort of go to question time. But please, if you do have questions, make sure you start typing them in now. I've got Matt at the ready. He's going to be going through your questions and collating them and bringing them up on the screen for me, so I can go through them after this. But before we do, just some last minute items that haven't made this demo today, but most likely will be in the final release. Just wanted to quickly touch base on what sort of is in development right now, because it's probably going to be rolling out, but with the beta over the next couple of releases. So firstly, we have a new feature for the synergetic Docman integration. We've added the ability to filter the Docman report by classification. What this will mean for you is you'll be able to create buttons and show specific documents on a specific Docman integration page. So if you, for example, want to create a button for ILPs on the student profile and you have a classification in Docman for ILPs, you'll be able to create that button and that page to just display ILPs from Docman. Traditionally, we built the Docman integration just to show reports, but schools are using it for more and more different things now. And so this will allow schools to create their own filters and their own views of that data, depending on what particular classifications they want to show. We'll have more information, of course, when that comes out in the release notes. But yeah, just to give you a heads up that that's coming. We've also changed the way pastoral notifications will be working. So traditionally, pastoral notifications came through with just a pastoral note has been created, a pastoral note has been updated. It wasn't very informative, and the feedback that we got was that how do I know that that's something I should look at, especially for someone who is perhaps a head of pastoral and might be getting a lot of those notifications a day. It's pretty overwhelming to see 100 notifications that all just say a pastoral note was created, and you just have to click into them all. So what we've done is we've increased the information that's presented in that notification. It now is going to include severity and type. So what you'll see is a message along the lines of a important note has been created, important bullying record has been created, is an example of what you might see. So that information will help you decide whether you click on that pastoral notification or you don't. Just to help people sort of, I guess, get through all of their pastoral notifications that they're seeing every day. We're currently working on OAuth support for customers that are using StudentNet and Digistorm. So if you're using StudentNet and Digistorm, there's currently an issue with the authentication workflow there. We've been working with StudentNet and Digistorm to enable OAuth authentication. So there'll be a new authentication workflow for customers using StudentNet and Digistorm. But that OAuth work also sets us up to further enhancements with OAuth down the track as well. So we'll likely be extending our OAuth support to other providers down the track. You know, there's lots of talk about things like Clever and other authentication providers that provide OAuth support. So we're looking at engaging with them as well down the track. But just initially, we wanted to get support for StudentNet and Digistorm customers to make that workflow as seamless as possible. So expect that in the next release. Obviously, we have to work with StudentNet and Digistorm to get that all coordinated, but we hope there'll be a solution for those customers soon. Then finally, when we do this upgrade, there will be a new maintenance page. That page will display during all updates. During the period of time which the update starts and ends, there will be a maintenance screen displayed to users. So that'll just be a nice page saying, you know, Schoolbox is undergoing maintenance. But the smart thing about this page is that it will catch any activity that's ongoing and pause it. So if you've posted a news post or something like that, and the system goes down for maintenance, traditionally you just lose that news, right? It wasn't the nicest experience. So now what's going to happen is the system's going to pause and that post will be caught, and the page will just sit there and just have a countdown, and it'll count down, you know, for a minute, and then it'll retry, and it'll keep doing that for the user automatically. So the user doesn't have to think about it. It'll just automatically reconnect once Schoolbox is back up and running, and all of their posts and everything will be saved and they'll be taken back to where they were before. So it'll just pause their activity while we do that maintenance. So just making it a little less interruption when we do that maintenance, make it as smooth as possible for our end users. You know, for the vast majority of time, our updates only take, you know, five minutes. But in the cases where it does take a longer amount of time, and in the last upgrade, we had a lot of customers coming from 18 to 18.2. We did experience some extended update times, and so on the back of those incidents, we made the change to add this maintenance page so that we could inform the users what's going on and we could monitor it better. So we can monitor how long a server has been undergoing maintenance during that period and track it. So if there's anything going wrong, we can then intervene. If it's been going on for too long, we'll be notified so we can start taking action on that server as well. So just a few little last minute things that I wanted to discuss that we've been working on. That about wraps it up from the show and tell. But how about we do some question and answers? So has anyone got any questions for me, Matt? Okay. So, Jane Deacon, full text news is awesome, thank you. Does this mean digest, instant email will be full text too? Many of our parents request this. So this is a good question, Jane. Unfortunately, with the digest, because it's an email, we can't actually put the full text in the email. Formatting HTML for email is very different to formatting HTML for a web page. And what that means is you can't safely just put your news article in an email and expect it to render correctly on the person's email client. It's just not the same. So what we've done to avoid that is we obviously take a slimmed down version of your news and put it in the digest and ask them to click through to the web page to see the full article. So that's unfortunately a byproduct of just the way email clients don't render news HTML very well. So if you embedded images or video or anything like that, that just wouldn't work. And I wouldn't want that experience that you were getting sending out a digest email where it had broken images and broken videos and things like that in it. It just wouldn't look good. So instead, I just ask that we send a brief and then they click through to a page where we know it will render correctly. Having said that, I do think there's space here for us to make it more efficient for parents. One of the things obviously parents have to do is if they haven't logged in, they have to log in. So potentially we could make that bypass the login. So maybe they can just view the article without logging in. So there's things like that that we could do to perhaps make it less difficult for our parents when they do interact with our news articles. But yeah, it is very hard for us to unfortunately render that full email as you see it on your web page, because they're just not the same. So just Kurt McCormack, can you turn off comments from an admin perspective? Good question, Kurt. From a high level, we're probably going to have a feature flag for comments. We actually don't have it at the moment, but I will make sure we do have it before final release. So you will be able to control comments across the board. So you'll be able to turn them on and off for the whole school. So yeah, we'll have a feature flag for that, so you can disable them for the whole school. But at the moment, it's not there. It's a surprising omission, but yeah, we'll make sure that comes before we do the release. But yeah, of course, comments are per article. So once it's on, it has to be turned on per article. It doesn't come on by default. So each author will have to turn it on if it's not an always on feature. Tim Barlow asked the same question, so I'll just skip over that. So I think I answered that. Brendan Vince, will the Rubric Markbook show if the mark is above standard, below, etc., as per Australian curriculum, e.g. the exact words well above standard instead of % or number? So Brendan, with the Rubric Markbook, the capability marks are showing based on your marking scheme. Now, if your mark scheme is got that language in it, yes, it will. But you'll have to have a mark scheme that uses that language in it. I think that answers the question. With the task system, because I know you're down in Tasmania, with the task system, I recently did a demo with another Tasmanian school where we marked the capabilities with a letter grade on the task scale. So you can also use that scale as well to mark. So you'll be able to do both, I believe, both mark to a standard and also to a task standard as well. Next up, I got a question from Peter Yates. He says, on the rubric poll, could there be a way to swap X, Y axis so that it can be a personal choice? That's certainly something we floated the idea when we couldn't resolve the debate about which way around the Rubric Markbook. We discussed making it an option. We'll have a look at that. The only problem with that is then it makes it hard for us to do documentation and notes and how to use when, for someone it looks different to someone else. So it does make it a bit harder to sort of communicate what's going on when everyone's looking at it a different way around. But yeah, it is something we did discuss. I don't think we'll probably do it in this case, but if it does become a contentious issue and more people are sort of arguing about which way around they would like, yeah, it might become something we just make an option for. And it might be not so personal, it might be a school option or something like that. Okay, next up, Rob Morgan in Tasmania with the task system. We preferred a per student markbook, rows, assessment, task, columns, capabilities, indicators. I think I answered this with the other question for Tasmania as well. I'm pretty sure we can meet the requirements of the task system. Now, you mentioned we want a per student markbook. Now, we actually already have that markbook. If you remember correctly, our grades page is the per student markbook. Now, for a student, if I just quickly bring up a student here, in Schoolbox, our per student markbook is fundamentally the grades page for a student. And so this is where we're able to collate all the grades for a particular student in one view. Now, one of the things that I think we can improve here is this area here. And that's next on our list of things to have a look at, is how do we best represent this information? Seeing as we've collected all this great data from marking rubrics, how do we then present that in a new format that makes that visible to students and parents? And of course staff on a per student basis. So this is probably the next area that we'll look at for making that per student mark data more visible. Okay, Simon and David asks, sticky names on Markbook. I'm not quite sure what you mean by sticky names, but I think I know what you mean by column freeze. We haven't actually been able to achieve that yet. We worked on it quite a long time, but there are some challenges with the way our rubric layout and the complexity of that table. So we probably will try and fix that up over the next few releases, but it just defeated us in this first round. We sort of spent a week or so on it, and then we thought we better just get this out rather than keep working on it. So at the moment we've left that one on the drawing board, but we probably will come back to that. We know we can get it working, but we just need to work out how we're going to approach it. So yes, that might come a bit further down the track. At the moment it's a bit hard for us, so we've just left it out for this release. Okay, Tanya Anderson asks, is there ability to download the Rubric Markbook to Excel? Currently, no. Once again, one of those things that we would love to have, but we haven't yet added that in. Expected to come as a future enhancement. We know that it was actually one of our features in the original work request, but we just haven't got to it, and we wanted to release the feature as it was. But it is one of those things that's in the list of things to do on that page, is to add in that ability to download that report as a CSV. It's not too difficult for us to do, so that should be a fairly straightforward one for us to add down the track. So I will expect that one to come out a bit later on, a bit later in the year. But yeah, if that's something everyone, all these things, by the way, where I'm saying, you know, we've left it out, or we, you know, coming back to it later, I always love to hear about these things in our forums. So if you think it's, you know, the most important thing that we could do, please get in the forums and let us know, because it does really help us identify what features we should build next. When there's a lot of activity in the forums on a particular feature, that really does direct our attention to what we build next. Okay, Stephen asks, Stephen asked a question that's probably not specifically on version 19, so I might park that question, and I might get that one answered offline. So sorry, Stephen, for that, but I'll answer that one offline. Simon Berg asks, relating to the photo upload feature, can parents and alumni upload their own photo? So at the moment, no. We've made the upload photo feature only an admin ability, just to control that. But if people are interested in making it a user feature, giving users the ability to control their own portraits, I'm open to that idea. You know, but you know, my experience has been that for most schools, they want some sort of control over those portrait photos. They want to make sure they're professional. So we haven't allowed individual users to control their photos. But if that's something that you are happy to look at, let me know on the forums. I'd be interested to know what people's feedback was on allowing individual users to manage their own portrait photos. Wade asks, regarding the portrait photo upload, do image files need to be named like when using the bulk import? And the answer to that is no. So when you upload a portrait photo to the user modify screen, you don't need to name the photo specifically. You can just drag and drop any photo, no matter what the name, and it will just attach that photo to the user. So there's no naming requirement. We need the naming requirement when bulk loading so that we can work out what user to attach that photo to. But when you're on the user modify page, you can just, you've already identified who the user is you want to attach to. So we don't need to know, we don't have any requirements for that photo to be named specifically. Okay, Tanya asks, you can only delete one comment at a time. What happens when a student spams the news with comments? Yeah, we did make a conscious decision about only allowing a single delete at a time. We'll review that if we get a lot of abuse. I guess the reason we sort of went down that path is you would be surprised the amount of accidental deletes that we get in the system. And so any bulk deletes that we give users, we always think twice about, because the more damage you can do in a single click, the more likely you are to do that damage. So we sort of deliberately made it a bit more difficult, I guess, is probably the way to say it. But I think it's just there. We deliberately thought, well, let's make it a bit slower. So if you do have to delete news, you do have to stop and think about it. And if you want to delete a lot of news, it's going to take you a bit of effort. Having said that, if we do get this situation where students are abusing the news system and we need to do mass delete, we'll certainly look at it. and we certainly might enhance that functionality or give some admin functionality to handle that. But we'll wait and see on that. I mean, our experience generally has been, because a student's name is posted next to their, and their photos posted next to their comment, students are generally pretty responsible about what they post. So we'll see how we go. But if that does become a problem, feel free to let us know and we'll review that decision. Peter asks, what does ISAM's batch API for UPS mean for us? Peter, I don't think it means much for you. It only means something for ISAM's customers. ISAM's is an international SIS product that we've started to integrate with. So for that integration, we've started to build an ISAM's connector via their API. And that work has been added now as part of version 19. So for customers that have ISAMs, they can now use the API to integrate and do their connectivity to Schoolbox. So that's where that comes in, but it's only really relevant if you are using ISAMs as your SIS. Okay, Ryan Keller asks, is a Rubric Markbook replacing the existing Markbook? No, Ryan. So there are two Markbooks, well, actually we have now 3 Markbooks. So if I go to the teacher again and just explain this, what the different Markbooks are, I know that there's now 3 of them. It can be pretty confusing what they all do, but we have 3 different Markbooks. So we have a class Markbook, which is your traditional Markbook. What this does is collate assessment grades. So this is just going to give you the grades for a particular assessment. So the overall grade that you gave to that assessment. Sort of your traditional way of marking, you know, you give an A for the essay, things like that. But as we've used rubrics more, the Rubric Markbook now gives you the marks per indicator. So if you're using a rubric, you'll see the grades here. Now, note that only assessments that use rubrics will appear on the Rubric Markbook. If you do not use rubrics at all, there's going to be nothing here. So this only applies to assessments that use rubrics, okay? But of course, the traditional class Markbook will show all assessments, regardless of whether they use a rubric or not. In fact, it will show quizzes and tasks as well. So it's the complete picture of all of the tasks, activities that students have done, whereas Rubric Markbook is just specifically on those rubrics. There's also another Markbook, just because we never have enough Markbooks. In here, we have the course Markbook. So each course has a Markbook as well, which shows you the Markbook for the overall, for all classes that are doing that course. So here you can see 2 separate classes and their Markbook for that. Now the question is going to be, will there be a Rubric Markbook for the course? And yes, probably likely, I would suspect that that's probably going to come up at some point. At some point down the track, we'll probably look at how we can bring some of this functionality together, course Markbook, Rubric Markbook, and try and blend some of those ideas together. Stephen asks, the question is a bit off topic, but it's an easy one to answer. We want partial information to be passed back to Synergetic for storage. Any chance? The answer is yes, fully done already. Schoolbox does synchronize all partial information back to Synergetic, so that's an easy one for me to answer. Tani asks, could you look into making Markbooks view customizable so that no matter what way the teacher wants their Markbook to look, names on the top or left, they can choose? I think we had that question earlier. I'm happy to think about it. It's something we can certainly do down the track. If it really is a contentious issue and there's not one right way to do it, then it might be something that becomes you know, customizable. Mary Brooks asks, with the new multi-synergetic document classification, will there be a separate button for each enabled classification on the student profile page? So just to answer this question, Mary, we've created the ability in the admin system for admins to create their own custom buttons on the profile screen. And I think, Mary, of all people, you're the one that probably knows custom buttons on the profile better than anyone. And so we've now made that a core feature. So we can, you can customize and control your own student profile buttons in the admin system. So let me just bring that up just quickly. So on the profile buttons area, you can add a custom button. And so you might add a custom button that is, say, for example, learning plans. And that would have the URL of the synergetic report docman with the classification filter in it. So that's how that would work. You would then make that available on whichever set of people you wanted to have it available on, and on whichever roles you want to make it visible to, so you can control who can see it and what profiles it appears on. So that's how you would create those buttons. So they won't come as standard buttons. You will be able to configure and set up the buttons that you want based on the filters you want on the document page. I hope that answers that in a bit more detail. So yeah, you'll be able to configure your own profile buttons there. Eduardo asks, is cloud storage only for profile pics? No, profile pics are actually the last thing that we've done for cloud storage. So we've already converted all of the other files in Schoolbox into our cloud storage system. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone can just start using cloud storage tomorrow. What it does mean is internally we're going to start migrating our cloud-hosted servers to S3 storage in Amazon. So that'll be the first step there. We have had discussions with a few schools about potentially connecting their Schoolbox data store to a S3 backend. That is certainly possible down the track. It's not something that we have got sort of set up in our standard practice yet, but certainly that's something that could become possible over the next 6 months. We'd have to do a bit of work to write up documentation and explain how it works and what responsibilities there would be on that data, but that's certainly where we're thinking, is that potentially a school could have an instance inside, but then maybe their storage is in S3. That could certainly be an option, and that certainly would help us of the that schools are having with storage at the moment in terms of growing that storage. So that's certainly something we're investigating. So that's pretty much where we're at with storage. But yeah, pretty much everything now. Any file you upload, student submissions, attachments, everything that goes into Schoolbox is now stored in our standard abstracted file system, which allows us to back end onto any cloud storage system. Okay, I think I covered the ISAMS batch for Joe. Hayden asks, on the rubric page, is it possible to highlight a column when hovering over it so you can use? No, that's a good idea though, Hayden. So Hayden asks, is it possible to highlight a column when hovering over it? So from what I understand, he means highlighting, keep needing to switch between users. So highlighting a particular column that you're looking at. We don't actually have that functionality, but I do agree that probably would be a good idea, considering how hard it is sometimes to track that data across. So yeah, it's a good idea. We'll certainly have a look at implementing something like that, a highlighting row thing. Luke asks, on the news changes, any chance the statistics discussed will include analytics on views of that news item? Yes, certainly. When we talk about the statistics of news, we're currently capturing views, who's viewing the article, so we're already doing that, so we already have that data being captured, so it certainly will include views. The other data we're capturing is referrer as well, so expect to see some reports on who's been viewing, where they've clicked on the link, where they've seen the article, that sort of thing is all expected to be in the statistics. Roland asks, as a new school using Schoolbox, I imagine it would make sense to upgrade to version 19 and then continue with customizations. Yes, Roland, I would definitely recommend upgrading to version 19. Getting the latest features as soon as possible will help you with your rollout, and it will also make those, I guess, upgrades smoother, because if you, and this goes for all customers in fact, the more often you upgrade, the easier it is to upgrade. If you delay upgrades, what happens is you get further and further behind, and the upgrades become bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's more and more change for you to deal with in that upgrade. So if you're 2 or 3 releases behind, that upgrade could be a huge change to your end users. If you keep up to upgrades and you know, a month or two after we've released an update, you're upgraded, you're only going to have 1 or 2 new features each time, and that interruption and change should be fairly small and should be easy for people to consume. But yeah, if you do 1 upgrade a year, it becomes a much bigger challenge to how do you communicate all that change to all your users in 1 year. Okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions, just 3 more questions. So I think some of these are off topic. So Carrie-Anne Draper asks, are you looking to add tagging grading for ACARA learning objectives rather than just grades assigned to assessments which have many learning objectives for individualized learning pathways? Actually, we have already started going down this path. And for those that do know, we have a curriculum mapping feature that allows you to import the ACARA curriculum and tag your capabilities and indicators against that curriculum. So just to give you a quick, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's a bit off topic, but just if I quickly look at, for example, the capabilities on this English page, in here, you've got the ability to add curriculum codes to these capabilities and indicators. What that allows us to do is tag it against the curriculum. And although we haven't done anything with that data yet, in the longer term, we do expect to be able to report on the curriculum. So to be able to tell you where you've assessed the curriculum, how you've assessed the curriculum, and how well the students performed against the curriculum. So that is the long-term goal there. At this stage, we need to do a bit more work there to build out our curriculum import processes and also to make those reports available to show that data. But if you're just looking at ACARA, you can certainly start today and start looking up those ACARA codes. I'm just trying to see if I've got any curriculum in here. No, I don't have any curriculum. Oh, no, there we go. So I've already got some curriculum in here that I can link it up to. You just browse through and see what part of the curriculum it's part of, and I can link those up. So that capability is already there. Okay, Luke asks, the Rubric Markbook, will there be 3 dots for exporting this information? I think I answered that question before. Also, it'd be interesting to have the ability to see the students ranked from high to low on the overall average marks, making it possible to see the group of students at the high or low end, not by surname. That's an interesting report. Currently not possible. At the moment, the report is sorted by student surname. We've talked about different sorting options in the past. There's a whole lot of really interesting ways to sort markbooks that give you information on, you know, the best performing students versus the worst performing students and things like that. It is something we probably will look at as advanced user functionality down the track. But yeah, at this stage, we haven't got any sorting other than the standard, you know, alphabetical order of the report, and that goes for all of our markbooks for that matter. We don't have any sorting. Okay, I think that's about it for all of the questions. There's a few questions off topic, offline and answer offline. But thank you very much, everyone, for participating today, and I hope you got a lot out of it. Obviously, just with the timeline, I normally like to sum up with just a timeline expectation. So we've got this release will likely stay in beta now for the next 2 weeks, during which time we'll do some more bug fixes, we'll listen to feedback and make some changes to the way it works. And then we expect at the end of that 2 weeks, we'll likely be doing a final gold release. So that'll be announced via email. When that goes live, you'll be able to book in with us. In that email, there'll be a link to book in your update. And as I mentioned, there's the new maintenance page. So book in your update. With this update, it's not a big update in terms of change, so it should be a fairly quick update to run. I haven't done some speed tests on this one, but I think we'd be looking, you know, in under 5 minutes sort of time frame, I would expect. So this shouldn't be a big disruption update. we're not doing a lot of manipulation of data. So some of those updates we did over 18 to 18.2, there was a lot of reworking of rubric structures and things like that and migrating old data, and they took a lot longer. With this one, there's nothing like that in it, so it should be fairly quick for us to run this update. So expect in about 2.5 weeks' time an email about the gold release, then book in your update, and you should be able to get access to these features shortly after that. Thank you very much, everyone. Just in terms of will it go to dev servers, I think I just saw a question. We've been rolling this out to dev servers already. I think currently 50% of all dev servers have got the update. I plan after this meeting to do the rest of them. So every server probably by the end of today will have every dev server will have the beta release available for you to test. So if you go to your server and it's not there already, don't worry, it'll come today, by the end of today, and you'll have it there for tomorrow. So yeah, sorry for those that haven't got it yet. Just to explain why that's happened, we've changed our rollout process with betas to be progressive, and what that means is we do 5 schools first, then we do another 10, and then we do another 20 or 30, and then we do another 50, and so we're slowly increasing the amount of schools that have got it, and at this stage it's just got to about 50%, which pretty much is the crossing over point where you can just go and do the rest of them. But it's just so that we can make sure there's no massive issues that are going to cause us dramas if we roll it out to everyone. So it's just a way for us to more control our test rollout. So it's taken us about a week to get all of it released to about 50% of the servers. But during that time, we've been monitoring any errors that are cropping up, and we've been fixing them and making changes to the platform. So it's helped us further enhance the quality and make sure that when we do roll out to everyone, everyone gets the best possible beta. So we just slowed that release process down a bit, but you will have it on your dev server by the end. So that should be done shortly. I think that's it from me. Thank you very much, everyone. I will speak to you, hopefully, maybe see a few of you at Edutech. I'll be up there this week, so might run into a few of you there. If not, I'll look forward to seeing you at the next meetup. Thanks very much.